There, boys.
There's the Welch fam.
Love it.
Yeah. On it.
Right on time.
They probably actually beat us to it. We came on.
Were you guys there much longer yesterday?
Oh.
I mean, I left around 1.
What'd you say, Jill?
I was laughing at it, right, asking if we were there much longer after.
Well, if Jill would have zipped it.
Oh, yeah, right. Jill was the one who took the longest yesterday, definitely.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, half the time it was like we weren't even talking about the program. It was kinda like, I'm like, are we on the record or are we off the record right now? Like, what am I?
I was too.
Like, what are you saving this for?
Yeah.
We're talking about.
Oh man. Yeah, I was like that too.
I saw you peering in. I'm like, he's like, geez, Lou.
They were getting antsy out there.
Oh yeah. So what time did we get out of there? Oh, she muted herself.
Oh, she did.
Oh, what?
What time did we all get out of there?
I think like 1:30, 1:40. I'm not.
You left around 1 maybe?
It was before 1.
That's for another like,
Yeah.
another hour.
15 to 1.
basically.
Yeah.
Oof,
Quarter 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's Noelle. Hey Noelle, I'll get you dialed in here. Oh, there you go. You must be a Zoom pro.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Noelle.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Have you become a Zoom pro too?
I've been on it more than ever in the last couple weeks, so I don't know if I'm a pro, but
Savvy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, sweet. Well, thanks in advance again for joining us and
Yeah.
for I'm assuming it's nice in Sioux Falls today. Or
Yeah, it's really nice.
Are you in Sioux Falls? Are you on the farm?
No, I'm in Sioux Falls, and I mean, our rink has been open, so like we've been skating for the last month.
Really?
Yeah. So
You.
yeah, but it's crazy. This is actually insane. I've got a kid flying in here today from Colorado. His dad has a plane, and so they're flying in for private lessons tonight and tomorrow, and then they're gonna fly home. Yeah.
Must be,
I mean,
Burt Reynolds or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it makes me kind of feel awkward, but if they're willing to come, then I mean,
Heck yeah.
might as well.
Got to do it. Especially now.
Yeah.
You and far
You
between.
better be on your A game then.
Yeah. Well, my goalie coach is coming over to do it, so that's good. But yeah.
Nice.
A goalie.
Oh, is that Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon's gonna be here.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
I met.
Yeah.
Oh, you had met the goalie?
Yeah,
Okay.
we went down there.
Yeah, Brandon Wildung. He's from kind of the Marshall, Minnesota area originally, but he played 4 years at Mercyhurst and then in the coast a little bit. So
Yep. I got you.
Yeah.
What's his
he's
last
awesome.
name?
Wildung.
Wildung?
WILDUNG.
Cool.
So
I'll have to look him up.
I bet he never
Yeah.
had time for that last name.
yeah, I know.
Dung.
Oh, done.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
So,
I'm mature. Okay. Well, hey, let's kick this thing off. So to everyone watching who will watch live and then on recording, this is a friend of mine, Noelle Needham. I went to school with Noelle. Did you guys cross?
Not at Mankato.
I don't think so. No, not at Mankato.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got 3 Maverick alums here. So representing the purple and gold here. So she played hockey at Mankato, and she's done an amazing job with hockey in the Sioux Falls community. And she's just got a really great story of leadership, overcoming adversity. I'd love to hear more about her faith story. And so we're just really fortunate to have her on today, just to share her wisdom and what she's up to and where she's going. And I think we can all learn something from her today. So again, Noelle, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So I guess what we've been doing with our special guests on Sunday is just kind of starting in the beginning, like, before we ever knew one another, like, what was your childhood like? I remember reading an article, you kind of grew up on a farm and all that, but I'd love to hear kind of more your perspective, just what childhood was like for Noelle, and where you grew up and what your kind of family values were and stuff like that.
Yeah, so my dad is actually from Yuma, Arizona, and I come from a long line of football players, and he played Division I football at University of Oregon, and my mom is from Northern Ohio, and they met actually because he moved away to play football in Southern California and ended up living with her aunt and uncle. So that's how they met, and he got injured really bad, and he was a logger in the summer for summer money, and he got injured really bad in that job. So they moved back home, and I was born in Ohio, and honestly, my mom had always wanted to live on a cattle ranch out west. And so when I was 9, they found this place out here in the back of a magazine, and it was, they chose this because Brookie in South Dakota had a hockey program, and so they moved us all out here and in a U-Haul right in the middle of a March blizzard, and it was like I mean, it was pretty wide open, and the house that it was the old 100-year-old farmhouse that wasn't in very good shape, and so we're first generational farmers and ranchers out here, and so really my childhood was building something from scratch and contributing to that, and all within kind of living out, my parents' dream of living out west, which is really cool. And so I felt like I had this phenomenal childhood of perseverance and work ethic, and we did everything together, and we were never allowed to walk. I always tell this story. We were never allowed to walk anywhere. Like, if we didn't jog, like if my dad needed something and we didn't jog, we legitimately got in trouble. So it was, we didn't waste any minutes out there or anything like that. And, we did all our cattle work on horseback and stuff. And so I got to live just this awesome, really, it was an awesome childhood. And then I got recruited to go to Shattuck when I was 12. And so I spent 6 years at Shattuck, which was just, for me at that time, a phenomenal opportunity and something I'm just so appreciative of that, I was able to experience. And I got hurt really bad when I was 15, especially for a white female. I blew everything out in my knee, and it was just pretty devastating. At that time, I was the #1 recruit in the country, and after that injury, it was, it was so severe. It was hard for people to think that I'd be able to come back from it. So, but that's how I ended up at Mankato. They were really the only school left after everyone pulled out that would still give me some scholarship money and an opportunity to earn a full ride. And so that's why I went there. And it was, I got to live out a goal of mine, which was to play Division I hockey. And then, I got injured again really bad, and that kind of led me back home to South Dakota. And I worked on the ranch for a year, and I bought 100 cows with a beginning farmer's loan, and that's what I was going to do. But I just had this calling. I just couldn't be away from the sport. And so I started Legend Hockey, which is a training company out here. It's an overnight 10-year success story. And so, now currently we We work with about 700 kids a year. And we're, we have these amazing facilities out here, which makes a well-rounded approach, much easier. And then I ended up starting a Tier 1 program called the Sioux Falls Power Tier 1, and we made a coaching change. That resulted in me coaching, so I coached the 16 boys team as well. And then 2 years ago, I was hired by the Toronto Maple Leafs as an amateur scout in the NHL. So that's kind of my life story up to this point, pretty much.
Notes version anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, she said she went to Shattuck, and I just want to say a little blip about Shattuck. Those are the best, not only the best players in the country, those are the best players in the world that go to that school. So to even be accepted into that school is just absolutely crazy. And then to do it at 12 is unbelievable. You mentioned you're a scout with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
I kind of had heard a little story from our mutual friend Jordan about how that happened, and it blew my mind, but it's just amazing how that came to fruition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I actually, I had taken my team out to play in a tournament in South Kent, Connecticut. And while we were there, Ryan Hardy, who's now the GM of the Chicago Steel, he at the time was with the National Development Program and was recruiting a player by the name of Joel Fabry. And we played after that game, and his buddy happened to be coaching against me, and we were smoking his team. And he thought that was hilarious, but I had no idea, and I didn't meet him then, and I didn't talk to him. So the old cliche of, hey, there's always someone watching. We tell players this all the time. This is a great example of that, I feel like. So unbeknownst to me, he had watched our team play, and a year later, he was now with the Boston Bruins. And he called me and left me a voicemail and said, hey, you don't know who I am, and I know this is really, really random, but I'd like you to come out to Chicago to this camp I'm having. And so I did, and it was just a great experience that week. And it was around a lot of elite people, which I've been really fortunate. My parents are elite people. Shattuck, when I was there, I was surrounded by elite people, and so forth. And so there was a lot of elite people, and he had given my name to Kyle Dubas, who is the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and just as an option, kind of an out of the box thing. And they were hiring new scouts when Kyle was hired, and did it on an anonymous platform. So they asked if I was interested in applying, and I said yes. And then they sent video, and I had to create a report on the games that they had sent on specific players. And I had never scouted before, so I had no idea what a report looked like, none at all. And I wasn't gonna ask anyone because I didn't want to sound like a complete newbie. So I just created my own report and Word document and formatted it and submitted it, and they just put a number on the top of it, and they had 6 people there evaluating the reports, and mine ended up coming out on top. And so that's how I was hired, which was really cool because that process eliminated a lot of things on both sides of it. One, I'd never want to be hired just because I'm a female.
Right.
But I also don't ever want to be excluded because of that either. So I felt like this process was done just really well, and afforded me the opportunity to do that. And since joining the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's been just a phenomenal experience. It's very well run, and it's just been really cool.
Yeah, that's just incredible. The amount of people that had to have put in for that position, and then for years to come out on top. That's just an incredible hockey mind. So so cool. It gives me a little bit of the goosebumps. I used to see those reports, and it's a hard thing to do, you know.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing.
So, do you come from a hockey family, or did you play sports and you just kind of gravitated towards that? How'd that all happen?
Yeah, no, my mom had taught us actually when I was really young, like 2, 3 years old, how to skate on a low spot in the field behind her house. And but like I said, I mean, something that we did growing up, every night we played catch as a family. So you know, we were athletic and just you know, we also worked a lot. Like at a young age, we worked a lot, and but we always had a good time. And you know, hockey, just I put skates on, I just took off. Like it was just a very natural thing for me, and I loved it. And you know, I've got 21 Division One, you know, football players in my family. So
Wow.
it's, you know, we just that type of athletic culture, I guess, gave me an advantage. I feel like just growing up with that mindset. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, hockey just from the time I put them on, it was my greatest love.
That's awesome. So, like, okay, that was, you know, so you grew up in a family of athletes and kind of that culture, that mindset. And that's one thing that we're really trying to help instill in this program for all the kids is just um, not just to be a great athlete. You know, we call this a curriculum because we're making it very holistic and
Yep.
you think and character development and all that. And so can you maybe dive in just a little deeper about like what that means in your family? Like what are the things that you did as a family that you're quite confident that didn't exist in most families that set you apart, gave you an advantage?
Yeah, I think so. My mom and dad, we had an old granary on our ranch, and they tore it all out, and it had a cement floor, but they put up plywood boards and rounded the corners and put up like chicken wire around the top and put a stereo in there. And so they made a hockey barn for us, and every night we played 2-on-2, and it would be myself and my brother Nick, who's the middle child, and then my dad and my youngest brother Vince. It'd be 2-on-2, and we'd play out there. And I really think what gave us the advantage was we were never allowed to listen to anything else other than AC/DC when we were in there. So I think that's kind of the secret component to everything. But you know, my dad, like we played rollerblade 2-on-2 every single night. My dad learned how to rollerblade, and it was intense. And I mean, many nights no one left there without like crying or bleeding. And but that's what we did every night. And like our day was structured. So, you know, we'd run in the morning, and, you know, my mom might ride the 4-wheeler or bike next to us, and we'd run in the morning, and then we'd have to read for an hour. And then you know, it was just, our days were very structured as kids. And then we'd go out and work, or then, you know, we had to shoot 1,000 pucks before we could come back inside, and stuff like that. So we really put an emphasis and priority on training, and that's what we did. You know, we weren't ever inside watching TV. I mean, we would like beg to get grounded. You know, like hearing all these other kids at school, like they got to be grounded. We never got to be grounded. So that's how it was for us. And I remember this one time, and I'm pretty sure sweat tops are like illegal, or they should be. My dad wrestled too, but he's from Yuma, Arizona, like I mentioned. So we'd have to run it at like 1 o'clock, the hottest part of the day. And we have sweat tops on, you know. I just remember like it was so hot. One day I was running and literally puking while I was running, and he's like, Walter Payton does this all the time. I'm like, I'm this 15-year-old white girl. I'm nothing like Walter Payton.
Farming's unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, we never went on family vacations because we didn't have the money to do that. And I never went on spring break in college or in high school. I always came back and worked, and that was okay because it was just like a family mission, honestly, and
Yeah,
we loved being together. So
Yep.
that's awesome.
That's cool.
Structure is a key word. I mean, that's one thing that we're, like during this interesting time we're all in right now with the shutdown is lack of structure. I know kids got, they got their online learning programs that they're doing, but for all intents and purposes, there's a lot of lack of structure. So we're trying to add structure. And I know a lot of kids struggle with that, but the reality is when there isn't structure, there's a lot of extracurriculars that can really get in, and the unfortunate thing is oftentimes they're not the most positive. So it's kids, and I would even say myself, and probably you as well, thrive in structure. And when there's not structure, it's easy to just get lazy, complacent. And so that's cool that you said that, because I'm thinking I didn't have that much structure growing up, but I always kind of envied farm kids,
Yep.
until they would always recruit me to come work.
yeah.
And they'd always invite me to stay overnight, 2 nights in a row. I'm like, oh, you won't have to get up early. Then sure enough, when the rooster crowed, it was,
Yeah.
and then I'm just like, wow, they do this every stinking day. And I just kind of admired that. It's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, did you take a lot of those values and, the hard work and stuff like that? Did you take a lot of those values and put this into what is now the Sioux Falls Powers? Do you structure your days do you look back and think, or take us through a typical day of a kid in your program?
So in our tier 1 program, they go to school. We have the option to skate at 6 a.m. So if they want a specific skill session or something like that, we have the ability to do that. But then they go to physical school, which I think is really important. There's just a lot of value in that. There's a lot of hockey programs around the country that just do it online, and it's just the teammates in a classroom and all day. I just don't think that's constructive. I want them to be around other kids. I want them to be accountable to teachers and go to football and volleyball games. And, let's not lose perspective of those formative years.
Awesome.
But then we practice every day from 3 to 4:15. Before we get on the ice, we watch video for 10 to 15 minutes, and those specific video clips reinforce what we're going to do in practice. We typically have 150 practice hours a season. And so, we practice, and then they work out from 5 to 6 at Sanford Power, which is a facility and workout place out here. They've got a strength coach that's assigned to them. It'd be no different than what it'd be in college, strength coach and program. We benchmark and track everything. They have a nutritionist that they're able to work with in that same facility. And then they do homework and go home, or we have a team meeting or a team meal, something in that regard. When we travel on the weekends, we do it. Everything is planned out on an itinerary. So the time we leave, what they wear, where we're going to eat, they have all that information, those addresses, the time, all of that. And I feel like they're able to operate better with a plan and with structure. And yeah. It just allows them to, know and to be organized, and then to focus on what they're truly there for. So that's kind of the idea. And we throw other things like that in there too. Our beginning of the year, Brandon came out, worked with our guys, and that was phenomenal, made a huge impact actually. And, we try to incorporate all that type of stuff, well-rounded approach. And then ultimately we want to develop kids at a high rate to move them on to the next level. That's a priority of ours. And then we want to compete for national championship. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I know you've had a lot of success moving kids onto the next level. Just talk about some of those kids and who you've moved on and kind of the, what were those kids like? What kind of separated them from, everybody else?
Yeah, there's, a lot of the kids that come here, I mean, they're not from a metro area. So it'd be very similar to where you guys are from and live, and they come here, but they really make the most of their opportunity in terms of facilities, ice time, development, all of that. And those kids that do that are the ones that find themselves developing the fastest, getting more attention, gaining confidence through that whole process, because that's so much of it. And, just having a will to make it to the next level. But I also say, like, those kids are the ones that don't care about the hype. They're not doing it just to get Instagram likes or Twitter likes or whatever, I mean, they're doing it because, like, they're adamant they're going to make it. And it's been really cool because, we've helped facilitate kids that had they not come here, they wouldn't have, a free college education. That's the whole point of this. I just feel like that's so priceless. So, but they're the kids that work hard, and they're not all perfect, but they're the kids that, work hard and are here for the right reasons, not just to be cool.
Yeah. Interesting. So cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You talked about, providing that opportunity and, with this too, we're trying to take a bad situation and provide these kids an opportunity to succeed or, stay on top of their game so that when they can go back to their sport, whatever it may be, they're ready,
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason we're doing this. It's just to keep those kids, engaged and give them a little bit of that structure. And, when they're ready to go back to their sport, they're not gonna be out of shape. They're gonna be able to keep up, stay ahead of everyone else who isn't doing stuff like this. So pretty cool that you said that.
Yeah, and I think this is just such a great opportunity. Like, I really value what you guys are doing too, but it's gonna create a divide between those that are willing to take personal responsibility and those that, are signed up for something that need coaches or whatever to, facilitate the work ethic through them. Because, so much of this too, and you're both Division I athletes and have been successful with that. I mean, if you're not doing stuff on your own when no one's watching, like, someone else is gaining the edge. So I actually think that's a benefit of what we're experiencing right now, is allowing kids to get back to a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always at every level, it's a filtering process, whether it's JV, varsity, the teams you coach, NHL, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, every level that I've had any experience in, there's always those who are willing to do the little things, and there's those who kind of just get complacent and just have a entitlement. And it happens everywhere. It's like, it's just human nature. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing we've been kind of emphasizing with this program and the kids is, like, take advantage of this, because the reality is most kids aren't going to do this. But even within that group that we have, there's those who are really engaged and growing leaps and bounds right now, and there's those that are kind of like, dabbling with it. So it's just interesting. And you're well aware, just being a coach, that's just the art of coaching, right?
Yeah, totally.
There was another story, I forget where I read it, Noelle, but it had something to do, and I just thought it was a cool story. Like, you went someplace to train with some guy, he was, like, very militant, and, like, Share that story. I know that I don't know too much about it, but share that story.
Yeah, I actually haven't told this very much, but when I was 18 years old, I was back at home at the ranch, and I got a phone call from my dad, who was out in the hog barn. We sell about 65,000 pigs a year. Our primary thing is hogs. He was out in the hog barn. He called me. He called up to the house, and he's like, "Hey, my dad has just a great attitude and is like totally optimistic all the time. He's like, hey, you've got 1 hour to get your hockey bag and you get one suitcase." I'm like, now I'm nervous because like he's also crazy. So I'm packing. I'm packing, and he comes up to the house, and I had no idea. And he took me into town and put me on the pedal jumper plane from Brookings to Denver. And he had arranged for me to train in the mountains with an ex-Navy SEAL for a month. And didn't tell anyone, like didn't tell my mom, didn't tell me, like didn't tell anybody. And my grandma lives out there, my aunt and uncle, so I stay with my grandma. And so it was an on ice thing, but it was mostly off ice. And it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was so hard that at the end of the day, I had to sit in a dark room, like by myself, because my brain was so overstimulated. I legitimately could not be exposed to light. That's how intense it was. And we do like we did jumping jacks for 3 hours straight. And I was the only female a part of this, and I was the youngest person there, and 22 of us had started, and I think 6 of us made it through the end. And I think because I was the only female, it was like a point of emphasis for him to get me to quit. And I like legitimately got called names on a daily basis. I didn't even know they were bad names, but they were, and we just did crazy stuff. And I mean, we went on this 12-mile jog, like up the mountain. I'm like, oh great, like where are the vans? Take us back down. And I was irate. I was so mad. And I'll be honest, I ended up hitchhiking the last 2 miles to the rink. And then we skated for an hour, and a kid, like at the beginning, the kid missed a couple passes, and so he bag skated us after that. And I just remember crawling on my hands and knees, literally like out the door to my grandmother's car, because I couldn't even walk. It was insane. But mentally, I felt like it took me, like I honestly feel like I'm on a different level after having experienced that. So it was, I made it. And this guy, he pretty much tried to kill me, and I tried to kill him. And it was so hard. I think the worst thing about the whole thing, though, is we would lift in this gravel lot, and he would pull out stuff from like this train container. So like benches and dumbbells. And then in the train container would be a boxing bag, which we'd have to punch without anything on. So like our hands are all bloody and stuff, but he would play 70s soft love rock music.
No way.
While we were doing this for like hours. And we'd train for hours. And I'm not talking about breaks. Like there weren't it wasn't like, hey, do a rep, get a breather. It was like these circuits that were continuous, and then you had to run 100 yards and come back, and it was repetitive. And this music like legit put me over the edge. I mean, I would have been able to handle the rest of it, but this music was like, it was excruciating.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that's my story for that summer.
And just out of curiosity, did he like the music, or did he just add that to mentally mess with it? No,
just to mess with people. Like he just did stuff like that to mess. I mean, when you're working out and you're like in the zone, and then it's like, I don't even know who I could say, but it's like should be playing in a lobby at a hotel, and it just, you know, like, it just, I feel like it tore my heart out. It's so painful.
What did you say to your old man when you got back? Were you mad, or did you, like, by the end of it, had you reflected enough to kind of go, this was good for me?
I think it took me a while. Like, you know, we just kind of joked, and I just remember being, after the first week there, I'm like, what were you thinking? He's like, oh, you'll be fine. This will be good for you. I'm like, okay.
I bet everything seemed easy after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything, after that it was a good, you know, I look back on it now and I'm really glad I experienced it and stuff, but it was also like crazy, so
Oh,
yeah.
it's like straight up out of a Rocky.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It is.
it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So what are you guys doing as like an organization during this time? You know, you guys probably aren't able to practice or, you know, obviously compete in games and stuff like that. So what are you guys doing, you know, during, you know, the pandemic to, you know, try to keep kids engaged as much as possible and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, we our rink has been open like in a limited capacity, so we've been able to skate somewhat, just kids that had come back in, and then Sanford Powers sent out created workouts for each kid at each different age level for our team, and we've sent them that. And then kind of what I talked about earlier, like if they want to take personal responsibility and they want to do more, they're able to reach out to them and create a more dialed in workout for themselves, and you know, encourage everyone to shoot pucks and stick handle at home. And there's a lot to do. I mean, you can train for hockey without being on the ice every single day. So, you know, this is, like I said earlier, a good test of, you know, a great opportunity to get better without it being orchestrated by someone else.
Yep. And I'm sure you'll know who was putting in the work and who wasn't, you know, when it's time to come back.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be obvious real quick. Just having to do whatever you guys do in hockey, blue line, sprints.
Yeah.
Put them on the line.
You'll see you've been
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing we've gone down a trail with most of our special guests too is just the topic of faith. And just curious, you know, was that something that was instilled in your childhood, in your home, or is that something that it's grown to be your own? Although it probably always does for each of us, but like, was it something you grew up with, or you found later in life?
Yeah, no, it was something that I grew up with, but just really based off of like where we lived, how far away from town and stuff, and then not being really from the area. You know, a lot of churches in small towns, very generational and stuff. But you know, my mom, we did Bible studies like every morning during breakfast before we get on the bus, and you know, it was something that we grew up with, and just how we were taught to treat people. And both of my parents just have shown, you know, tremendous compassion to people and giving people chances, whether it's to work or place to live, or, you know, serving them with cooking food or whatever. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have been brought up like that. And you know, we didn't go to church every Sunday, and I didn't go to church camp in the summer, but it was always an emphasis in our home and something we talked about. And you know, just through college, I felt like, you know, I never drank in college, or and it's pretty, you know, straight laced and stuff. And I'm thankful that foundation that I was raised with helped me with that. And it's just something that I really rely on. Like, I think that's something that the injuries and the hardships and stuff really taught me, is I had this plan. Like, I wanted to be an Olympian, and that's where I was going, and just a lot of other stuff. And then I was taught real quickly that that's not where I was going. So just, you know, I feel really confident in having trust and trusting that the Lord's going to put me in places to be successful and use me and how he wants. And that's how I go about it. I don't, I learned to let go and not have like so much control a long time ago.
Yeah. And that I found too, that it frees you up, like, performance wise, like, you know, talking athletically. So I feel like so many athletes, and I'm speaking from my own experience before I had a strong faith, it was very like anxiousness, like performance detriments, you know, because it was always about, like, these external things. And if I just could have played with some peace, knowing that, you know, that it wasn't my identity. And I found that later in life, after college sports, where I'm like, man, I wish I would have had that carefree, like, and it wasn't that I didn't play less competitively. It's that competition was still there. It was just a freedom that came with it, you know?
Yeah.
And one thing we've been encouraging these kids, we read the book. I don't know if you've read the book, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Just stepped on a spider.
I was hoping you were going to get it. I was looking at it. Like,
But Chop Wood, Carry Water, we've been talking about outcome-based goals with, you know, because, like, you know, you're an outcome-based goal, for example, and I'm sure you're aware, but like would be like for you to be an Olympian, right? That's the outcome.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a couple blown out knees later, well, that's something you can't control. You can set your sights on it and then get your behaviors aligned with it, but in the end of the day, you can't control that. And we're just trying to encourage people, like, no matter the outcome, you know, there's something to learn from adverse situations, that, you know, and life happens not to us but for us, and what can we learn from all of it. So it's really cool how your perspective in each of your setbacks has really led you to where you are, and ultimately impacting a ton of kids, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's so cool too. Like, I'm always in awe, and I'm continually reminded, like, you know, God's plans for each of us, they are so much bigger than we set for ourselves. And, you know, that's something to be mindful of too. I mean, I never would have imagined that this is where I'm at and what I'm able to do and so forth. And it just, you know, totally kind of blew the doors off of the dreams that I had and made me realize how small they were. So I think that's the other cool perspective to have with faith and stuff.
Yeah.
so awesome.
There it is, isn't it?
It is crazy. So one thing we kind of have asked other speakers is about coaches. Is there a coach that, like, when I say that word coach, you know, for me, I always have one guy come to mind. It's Mike Hastings, and you probably know Mike.
Yeah.
Just a guy who kind of, I mean, he changed my life, you know. Is there a coach that you've either had or been around that you're just like, I want to run through a wall for you? Like, have you had that experience? Or
not to that extent, I don't think, but when I had, you know, one of the hard parts about leaving, there's a saying, like, you're never a hero in your hometown. And, you know, especially in small towns, people want you to be successful, but not like too successful. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we want you to be really good, but not like so much better than the rest of us. And so when I was getting recruited to Shattuck, you know, there was a lot of, oh, you're never going to make it, and you're going to end right back up here, all of this stuff. And my Pee Wee coach in Brookings, South Dakota, was a chemistry professor at SDSU, and had played juniors in Canada. And I just remember his encouragement and just him speaking with my family really gave the confidence to go to Shattuck and to chase this. And I was really fortunate that he wasn't from there, just because there's not a big hockey culture here, especially back then. So,
Yeah.
like, that's just a great imprint that he left on me, and forever grateful. So he's probably my favorite coach that I've had, just because at that time, I mean, without him doing that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Power of words, right? Like, what if
Yeah.
what if the conversation would have went differently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what, Noelle, you're good, but I just don't know if you're that good. Can you imagine the difference?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it may have all worked out, but it's just like, and I only bring that up to, so all the kids, when they're watching this, is like the power of their words with their teammates, and the younger kids that sometimes feel like they're an annoyance, but you got to kind of look at them as like a mentorship opportunity to speak life into them, like, hey, you're the next crop, like, and just speak into them. That's
Yeah.
important. The power of words, man.
Yeah, it matters. And this is like, to be a Division I athlete or pro athlete or whatever. I mean, yeah, you have your 0.5% guys they're generational talents. In every sport, there's generational talent. But for the most part, it's honestly who can endure the process of it. Like, it's not. There's so much instant gratification, and that's what everyone is searching for. But like, the guys that make it and are playing college hockey, like Mankato's a really good example. I mean, all those guys on that team are so old. There's not any, 18-year-old true freshmen on that team. They play juniors, and it's can you get better every year, and can you hack it out? And I'm sure it's like that with other sports too. And it's just, that's where the belief and doing it for the right reasons and surrounding yourself with people that want to help you get there is just really important.
That's spot on.
It is. I love it.
Spot on.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and that, like you talked about Mankato, and they take those guys that, they're marinating. They're getting better playing juniors. They're coming into college at 20, 21 years old, and then they have a coach who, he's not in a hurry to get them out of there. He wants them there for those 4 years, and he's just building them up, and getting them ready for that next step. And those type of coaches and those type of people in our lives are just so important. I feel like, when I was lucky enough to have Hastings come into my life at a time where I needed that guy. I needed him. I was kind of on a lost path, and leave it to a coach to sit you down and shake you a little bit, wake you up. But those coaches are so important, and you being a coach, I'm sure you try to pound those attributes right into your players as well. I know I'm trying. It's a little different than being on the other side of the bench, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think because I work primarily with 15 and 16-year-old males. It's really interesting because I feel like this is actually such an important age where, like, words of affirmation are very crucial into getting the most out of them, because they're not as mature as females typically at this age, and they need that.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, or an age. Yeah, that's true. They need that positive reinforcement. Like it can't be. You can't tear them down. I mean, it's just that to me has been just really interesting. And as I've done this for 4 years now and realized, and this year we talked a lot, and it started with Brandon coming in, and then we had another coach come in and talk about like the heart and caring for one another, and your heart can project its feelings up to 6 feet. And so we talked a lot about projecting, on your teammates and the effect it has on them, and caring for one another. And it was, and I've got this draft email actually to send to Brandon to tell him about, like, the course of this whole year and just how the tremendous change and everything. But it was really cool that they just, like, they didn't think it was too cool. Like they weren't like, oh, this is stupid stuff. They actually completely gravitated towards it. And the result in our performance towards the end of the year, I mean, we beat the #1 team in the country, and you know, and then our season ended prematurely, but it took kids to another level and gave them a chance, and you know, it helped. I think that's a huge factor into, we're going to have a kid commit to D1 here in the next 2 weeks, and USHL draft picks coming up this week off of it. And I mean, none of this that I've talked about really has said anything about the ice or training. It's just, you know, how you treat each other and so forth. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
So interesting. And meanwhile, when you said the heart can project 6 feet, I'm thinking like social distancing.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be
Yeah.
6 feet. I'm like, well, it takes away the heart issue, man. We
Yeah,
can't be-
right.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly what I thought.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Noelle, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed every minute of this conversation. There's a ton here that I hope everyone that's listening is grabbing hold of, and those that watch the recording really grab hold of. So, and I know it's a beautiful day. Is it windy where you're at? It's like super windy here today.
Yeah, it's out here. It's windy, 364
I was
days.
just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. It's always windy out there.
Yeah.
You're playing baseball in super
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
Well, any closing thoughts? I was just gonna thank her.
Yeah, no, yeah. Thank you. It's been awesome to kind of meet you face to face and learn a little bit more about you, and all the best. Wish you all the best and good luck whenever you're able to get going again. Hopefully soon.
yeah. Well, I love what you guys are doing, and I appreciate you having me on. You know, I'm always humbled when asked. So keep up the great work, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Noelle.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
It's gonna impact a lot of
Thanks,
people
guys.
too. See ya.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
see ya. Bye.
Bye.